Hello, this is Claudia de Fuentes from the Sobi School of Business at St. Mary's University. And in this session, we are going to be talking about how to improve your prototype. How can you experiment and prepare for learning. So you have already developed a rough prototype, and you're going to need to go into the evolution stage. So how can you learn from your prototype? Evolution is actually the development of your concept over time. It involves planning the next steps. It involves communicating your idea to the people that can help you realize that prototype into the final solution, and also documenting the process. Changing the process happens over time. You're testing your prototype, and when you're testing, you're getting feedback. You're going to be able to refine the solution and continue to learn about the users that you have at hand. Testing is a mode where you are actually able to iterate, and you're testing the lower resolution prototypes, and you're able to move them into higher resolution prototypes in the appropriate context that your user is embedded into. So one of the key things of prototyping is prototype as you knew you were right, but test as if you knew you were wrong. Right? That is going to allow you to really truly understand what is the feedback and how can you improve the prototype that you have. So testing with your users is fundamental. It's a fundamental part of design thinking, because at the end we are designing for them. Right? Testing the prototype that we have with the users that we have at hand is essential, because it's going to give you really valuable feedback of the prototype. It's going to allow you to refine the prototype, perhaps even discover that the solution that you are suggesting is not valued for your users. Well, it's much better to discover that early than perhaps later when you have produced the solution in the market, right? So when you test your prototypes, you have to consider what you can learn from the user, how can you improve the prototype, and perhaps if there's any other hidden patterns and hidden problems that you didn't discover before. The test mode is when you solicit feedback to your prototype. Is when you want to listen about that feedback, perhaps to create, or perhaps to understand how can you change it or identify another opportunity. But you continue developing that empathy that we learn early in the design thinking process. Testing, at the end of the day, is another opportunity to learn, to keep learning about your users, to keep learning about what do they value, what they don't, what frustrates them, what gets them excited. Also to understand if that concept that you are testing is actually closer to the frame, or perhaps even the frame was wrong, right? So then allows you to move faster. When you bring your prototype to your user, you're going to kind of like assume the empathy lenses and that we learned before, and you're going to keep asking why. Did you like it? Why yes, why not, and so on. And ideally, you're going to test your prototype in the real context where your users are embedded. Where would they really use the prototype? If it's a physical object, then try to test it where the users would really use it. If it's something a little bit more like a diagram, well, what are the specific context or elements that would be incorporated in the real situation that your users have? That is why perhaps a role play would be a really nice component for a prototype, because that would allow you to collect the information from the user in terms of the real context where they would be at. So, as a rule of thumb, remember, test like if you know that you were wrong, then to be able to bring that feedback into the next iteration of your prototype. Why do we have to test? Well, we have to test because we know we are not going to get it right the first time, but we test to refine the solutions that we have. We test to keep learning from the users and to iterate into the next version of the prototype. We are also going to learn more about the users. Perhaps we're going to discover or uncover things that we haven't seen before, and also to refine the point of view. Perhaps the concept is wrong and also the point of view is wrong, but then you would have to go back to the kind of like the drawing board to go back and refine that point of view statement that we developed early in the process. So how do you test the prototype? Let your users experience the prototype. Let your user misuse what you have created for them. At the end of the day, they are the ones that are going to be using that solution. Do they value something? Did they get excited about a specific feature of the prototype? Did they get frustrated about something? What was that? So you're going to capture that into your learning documents. And also have them talk through out during the experience. Ask them the whys. Why are you doing that? Or what, but without criticizing. Remember, at this point, you're going back into the child mindset where you want to learn from the user, where you see perhaps they are using the prototype for something that what was created. That's an important finding. Observe, keep observing. Try, if the user is actually misusing the prototype, don't try to correct them. Rather, keep observing what do they do next. And after they have tested the prototype, follow up with questions. Ask them what worked for you, what didn't work for you in the prototype, what made your life easy, what made your life more difficult, what would you change in the prototype. And then capture all of that learning and bring it into the next iteration of your prototype. One of the important things in this stage is that you have to track your learning. As the concept evolves, you can begin to measure the impact that they have. You can identify what are those specific elements that can be identified as measures of impact for your users. What do people like and appreciate about your concept? What are the key indicators of success? And also, how would you measure the impact of your prototype? Consider developing this 2x2 matrix where you identify in the plus sign what is what they like, what is what the users like. In the delta sign, you can identify what is what they would change, or what would you change based on the observations that you had. In the question mark, perhaps you can identify some of the components that were not 100% clear from your prototype to the users. And in the light bulb sign, you can identify specific ideas that you got that were triggered by the use of your prototype by your users. And at the end of the day, this is going to help you evolve your solution into a final solution. At the end of the day, remember that we have to bring to convergence the concept and the frame. They are at this point separated, far apart, but with the iteration, with the testing, we have to bring them back together. Once they converge, then we know that we have it right, then we know that we are actually addressing the problem with a real solution to your users. Okay? And this doesn't come so easily. Design thinking allows you to fail fast to succeed sooner.